All right, what's up? We're back with another BrakeAce analysis of a race that I did just before Christmas. So it's a few days after Christmas now, a few days after the New Year, actually. And I'm just getting around to analyzing it because I had a beautiful break where I just went swimming and riding pretty much every day here in Rotorua. It was awesome, but now I'm fully ready to get back into it because I actually really missed working on all this stuff. So I've been uploading all my data and we are into it. So actually, if you're a BrakeAce backer on Kickstarter, I sent out an update on just before Christmas. I think it was Christmas Eve, informing you about our new electronics. So check that out. We're pretty excited about the modules that we're using for BrakeAce for the wireless version. So if you're not a backer on BrakeAce, follow us on Instagram and you'll be able to track our progress there as we release detail a little bit later for you. Anyway, here is my race. I tried something different when I practiced before this race. So I knew what track it was going to be. I didn't really ride the track kind of ever. It's like this flow trail called Eagle versus Shark. And I guess a little bit of background on what the race was. It was just like a midweek thing, kind of fun, not serious at all. Super D. So you go down the hill basically, and they add some funny things that you have to do before or after. Because of COVID, there's no like jump rope or eating wheat bix before the race. You just kind of get straight into it. So I went out the day before and I practiced the trail 2 times. Now these 2 times, I did it a little bit differently. Normally with BrakeAce, we'll session the key opportunities, but what I did is after the first run, I looked at the key opportunities, what they were, and I didn't session them because the trail is pretty straightforward. So once I knew where my key opportunities were and I had a feel for the trail, I could use a little bit of what I was calling self-talk to coach myself through the run. And it seemed to work pretty well. I got faster the second run by paying attention to where my key opportunities were. So when I got back home that night after practicing the trail 2 times, I synced the BrakeAce data with video. It makes it a little bit easier to understand like where things are happening because sometimes GPS isn't the best, as you'll see, and as you can see if you're looking at the map now. And that's okay. Like we know from using Strava that GPS isn't the most amazing thing. I'm using what is supposed to be a better GPS, uh, but on the BYB telemetry data logger, it's still not the most incredible because we're riding through the forest and things like that. But I'm not worried about that because that's a problem with every kind of GPS. And then we can solve that by syncing with video. And then the video, the GoPro, isn't determined by the quality of the GPS data, which is cool. So I synced that with it that night, and I watched my second video, which was my fastest one. I set a PB uh, from Strava, and I watched that video to try and get faster again. So here is kind of what I was looking at when I was looking at the app. And you can see like the trail took 7 minutes. There's this long flat bit at the end. It's like really long and really flat. And I didn't know at the time, but they actually totally cut that out of the race. The race ended up finishing, well, you ended up taking what turned out. This new update makes my computer a lot slower with the screen recorder. But anyway, we ended up like coming out here and sprinting across. I'll show you that when I show you the other run. So this ended up actually being a little bit longer, and I'm glad. Well, actually, I'm not glad they took this out because for this uh, race, right, I put on cross country race tires. I put on Ardent Race, and I've actually really been loving that tire. So you can check out this full analysis that I did comparing downhill tires to the XC tires. Like we can get away with that in Rotorua because there isn't sharp rocks, and they're fast. Like they corner really well. I've been fully impressed by the Ardent Race for going fast downhill. And like, even though this is like a grade 3 trail or something, just in the last few days, I've been able to set my PBs on like grade 5 trails that are like really hard ones. Um, and they're fast, right? So I'm just outside the top 10 and I'm like, oh, okay, like we're going pretty quick on these XC tires. Um, so I put them on for this race thinking that we were going to have this long pedal here at the end where I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I need for that long pedal is those XC tires. But since I took it out, I was actually thinking, I would have been maybe a little bit better off on the downhill tires just because I can corner a lot better. So one of the practice runs I did like a week before this race was with downhill tires. And I felt great. Like I didn't have to brake a lot. Um, and what I think, like in the self-talk that I was doing in my first two practice runs, I was like, wow, with these XC tires, you get up to speed so quickly. And it's actually scary. So a lot of the braking that I had to do was like just making sure I wasn't going too fast, like safety braking. It wasn't even a brake check. I was like literally braking so I didn't go faster because I was going way too fast, if that makes any sense. So it didn't actually show up as any bad braking because my scores ended up being like pretty good. Obviously, the brake health wasn't great, but my effectiveness was incredible. That's one of the highest brake effectiveness I've seen. So that's cool. So I looked at my key opportunities that night as well. So obviously the key opportunities is where you have the most room for improvement. I had to look at those that night. I'm like, okay, I know where these are and I know what to do. So remember, there was no sessioning involved with this run, which I think is great because it was really efficient. Just two practice runs, know what I'm looking at, know where it is, got the video, let's do it. Um, Definitely the most efficient that I've been able to use BrakeAce because I was literally just riding with the addition of the data. So I knew where these were coming into the race, and like I was partially looking to get rid of those race nerves and that over braking like I had before, but I wasn't like 100% successful in getting rid of those race nerves and that over braking, as you'll see. But at least I knew where these were. So here we go. Now I've looked at this one a few times, so you can just have a look here at some of my stats. So my total braking time was 39.1 seconds. I braked 39 times for an average event duration of 1.0 seconds. Also, what am I doing so much on the rear? I've always been a front braking guy, but yeah, here we go. 84% on the rear. Okay, oops. Don't want to highlight that. Yeah, the screen recorder is making like everything so slow. Okay, I was modulating a bit more than I kind of wanted to. I only had 2 long events, 4 brake checks. In the run before this, I had even more brake checks. Um, it's just so fast. With it, if I did have the downhill tires on, I think I could have been able to definitely like brake a lot less, but I would also roll a lot slower, and that's kind of the trade-off you make, especially here where we don't have to run downhill tires. If you're riding somewhere rocky and you're going as fast as you can downhill, don't use flimsy tires, right? Because if you get a flat, that's everything over, right? I think some people misunderstood what I was talking about in the tire comparison video. Okay. All right, so those are the main stats that I kind of want to look at. Of course, like the time you'll see is a little bit different, and then the flow score is different because they ended up changing the trail. And so let's look at the other one. So flow score of 10.3. Okay. So this is the actual race from start to finish, 5 minutes and 38 seconds. This is the third low-key Super D I've done here in Rotorua in a row, and pretty much I'm like 5 minutes and 38 seconds, or like somewhere within a few seconds of that on every trail we do, which is kind of nice planning by the organizers. Oh, I was 100%. My effectiveness was 100%. You can see here. So you can see here that the duration was shorter, and that's because we ended up skipping out that long pedally bit. I would have liked to do it because, like I said, I was feeling fresh. I was feeling good. I've been riding a lot. I would have like really liked to throw down for that pedal, and I was even looking for places like, okay, this is where I pedal, and I don't need to brake, so this is a perfect mix. But since we ended up taking this like funny, funny turn out here and then finishing in the grass, I didn't get an opportunity to do it. I did get a nice sprint here in the grass. I think it was like an average of 800 watts for maybe 10 seconds, which is like pretty good because it was pretty short. And I had to shift a bunch of times just to be able to get up to speed. So I was pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with my sprint. My heart rate was like through the roof. I should probably show my Training Peaks file at some point. Just making sure that you can still see this map. Yes, you can. Okay, cool. So what ended up happening here is my flow score ended up being a 15.4, and this is so it's a lot higher than the other one, which is like, oh wow, so I braked more. Well, yeah, but also you got to keep in mind that I had this final braking event, which was me stopping. So that ends up having like a really high flow score. So a flow score of 2.02, which also ended up being one of my key opportunities. Now, obviously, when you're analyzing a race, you don't really care about when you actually had to stop and like scan out. So that's why we built in this flagging feature where you're like, well, I'm not super worried about key opportunity one because that was me coming to a stop. I can't improve that. I just need to focus on stopping as quickly as possible. So we just flag that one and then we show the actual other key opportunity. Okay. So I actually haven't looked at this one. So we're kind of just looking at it for the first time. I just had a quick browse. One of the things that I thought was interesting was you notice in the other one, in my second run from the first day, I didn't break much in here. Um, and one of the things we ended up doing is they threw me for a bit of a loop here. So they threw me for a bit of a loop, and we had to uh, cut out. I'm pretty sure this is where it was. We had to like cut out into this kind of parking lot thing and go around a bit of tape. And they said it was like a sand feature or something like that. They said before the race, where it's like as annoying as having sand in your shorts because we just like cut off the trail, did this chicane in like the loosest gravel possible, and then got back onto the trail. So I had to pass someone just before that, and I had actually been really focused on this as a key opportunity, and where you kind of like come out of the turn and but I was focused on going like staying on the trail, right? So this kind of shows up for me as a key opportunity because I had no idea where I was going. I obviously wasn't looking far enough ahead. And there's a photo of me in the race where I'm clearly not on the right line. And I'm not looking where I'm going because I'm not looking at the right place because I'm not really sure where I'm going. And that was this funny exit. So in like that first run, you'll see I didn't really break much in here. I'm pretty sure this is the area. Let me see this. So we can use this to kind of find out like where we're looking. Oh no, this is like actually on the trail where I ended up breaking more. That's interesting. So really didn't break. Um, yeah, okay. I ended up breaking more here where I didn't actually have to. That's interesting. So this is different. This is its own thing. Interesting. Okay. Well, there we go. I was still over braking. I did have to pass someone, or I could see someone kind of coming up that was going to have to pass, and it was maybe in this section. Uh, Funny fact: I recorded my race run. Well, I planned to record my race run on GoPro, so I had like all my recording kit on. I had my GoPro on. I went to push start at the start. No memory card. It's like classic, like all these things that you have to remember to do, and I have my routines because I've obviously done a lot of testing. Didn't have a memory card. So I looked like an idiot just rolling around with my GoPro and not able to do anything. Now, this is interesting though. Look at all these brake checks. So in run two, I brake checked 2 times, or I think it was 4 times. Uh, this is looking like it's in shambles. Hmm. So I braked 53 times with all these brake checks, 11 brake checks. Hmm. I still haven't solved that race mode yet. Okay, that's a little bit embarrassing. I was almost thinking, I was looking at, I was like, am I looking at the right run? But I'm pretty much positive it is. Just because where it stops, I never had stopped there before because I didn't know where I was going. Um, So yeah, I had 11 brake checks. That's definitely something I need to work on. I really need to be able to stay focused and flow, um, and look ahead. So yeah, not ideal for me. I ended up braking a lot more times. So one of the thing is like, yeah, I had to brake like 3 or 4 times in that chicane turn that we had to take, right? So I wasn't expecting that. So there's a couple of them. Overall, I had been braking a little bit less in duration each time, but um, I had a few extra brake events. So here's an interesting one where I actually had no idea where I was going. And this is showing up as a key opportunity here. So you kind of like exit the trail, and I didn't know where this exit was. I went fully sideways as I was coming past some people pointing which direction to go, and then exit out onto this funny road. So that must have been like somewhere up here or something like that. And then we come here in through a gate, and obviously I had to really brake a lot because I had no idea where we were going. I thought we were going up this lookout kind of thing, but instead we went around it. So I was looking up the lookout, and I was like, "Do we go up there?" And then they're like, "No, go around it." So I sprinted around it. So that ended up being one of my key opportunities where I braked. One of my biggest key opportunities where I braked for 3 seconds. So that's like a combination um, through the gate. I'll see if it'll let me click. Yeah, it's not liking me clicking on that, so we'll have to check that out later. Um, but I can see the stats here. So, wow, average braking power of 1,000 watts for 3 seconds. So that was a big one. Obviously, like if you're doing an actual event, you're not actual event. It was an actual event. If you're doing something where you have the opportunity to actually practice before, like a sanctioned race or something like that, you're going to know where you're going. So you wouldn't want to see something like this, a huge key opportunity pop up just because you kind of forgot where you were going. Because you can see how, with the rest of your braking, how this really stacks up against it. It's one of the things that I can improve the most. So I guess that goes to show like you really want to know where you're going. Now, this part looks funny, and this is like a GPS issue, which, like I said before, they're kind of unavoidable, uh, but they're fixable. So this is something that we've been working on being able to fix. Like, okay, we got this GPS data. How can we make it better? Right. So this one is kind of a point where the track literally like loops across it's not loops across itself, but it's like right under itself. So that's why we see like these greater errors in the GPS. Like it's literally like on a bench cut, and then the other trails like below it. So that's why this looks a little bit tricky. And you can see that this is one of my key opportunities is braking into that left-hand turn. It kind of goes like this, whoosh, and then you loop back around that way. So that was initially I had thought this is where we go out onto the parking lot thing, but I don't actually think it was. This might be where I passed that person on the way down. So I guess like it's been a few weeks now since the race, and what I should have done is probably take some notes right away. And obviously, like having that video would help as well, where you can track along with the video and your key opportunities and be like, okay, this is where it is, and this is potentially why it happened. So I really like syncing that with GoPro. But yeah, so the GPS thing that's just the GPS thing. So we're working on just like making it easier to visualize, which has worked pretty good. Okay, interesting. All right, what else do we got here? So I ended up braking for a total time of 52 seconds, which obviously this one's 3 seconds, right? This me stopping. I think that's what it was. 3 seconds or 2 seconds. Flow score was 2.7 seconds. Okay, so that one's pretty big. So then, we're really talking, we're down to about 50 seconds of braking that if we're comparing to the other run. Average power about 1,000 watts. It's stinking fast on this trail. This critical event, this is critical, is kind of like when you're coming to a stop, which you obviously don't want to do if you're going fast. So that would be that finishing event. 3 long events. The other practice run only had 2. Yes, like one of the things I really believe in is trying to optimize like how you pedal and how you brake. So when you get into racing, you're obviously pedaling a little bit more, but it makes you brake a little bit. This is the whole thing like my PhD was based on, is like trying to understand this optimization. Or at least that's where I wanted it to go. And then we ended up having to do like so much about braking just to do that, because no one had ever done that before. But I really believe that as a human engine, we need to optimize where we pedal and where we brake, and we can get the best race run if we do both of those perfectly, or at least to our best, right? So if you pedal and you then have to brake more, it was maybe a little bit of a waste. And this is what I'm still doing in my race runs. So I need a little bit more focused race practice, and I have power meter on my bike all the time. I have BrakeAce on my bike all the time, and I can be able to look at these things. So it is an evolution, and in the future we will have the most perfect racers ever. So anyway, I think that should be enough. I don't want to have this go too long. I think that's a pretty good quick analysis. I don't even know how long we've been going, but that's a pretty good analysis of what some of the differences are in my race run. I still got some work to do. I think we all do. I didn't win. I think I was like 10th or 15th or something like that. Can't even remember. But yeah, obviously, if I want to win, I got some work to do. So that's where we're at. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that helpful, and we will see you next time.